Welcome to another episode of Lando Sports Discussions, your spot for real talk on NFL, NBA, and all things sports. I'm your host, Lando, and this week we're going to get into the NFL Week 3. I actually watched some football this weekend, as well as um, Molly Qerim and her abrupt leaving of ESPN, as well as Bruce Pearl has made news. Shout to Etan Thomas. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so my biggest takeaways from the NFL week number 3. Again, last week I didn't watch any NFL, didn't have a whole lot of time for it. But this week was able to sit down, watch a bunch of games, and yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and break some of the things down and my biggest takeaway from this week's slate. So this weekend was huge, 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 huge. I do bet football and NBA and boxing, and I almost had a losing week, but a strange phenomenon happened. There were four blocked field goals, and those literally saved most. I think three of my wagers that I made. The Jets blocking that field goal, taking it back for a touchdown. The Eagles blocking their field goal and taking it back for a touchdown, as well as the Browns blocking the field goal that ultimately led to them having a game-winning drive. So I don't know what I think the Browns blocked two field goals there, as a matter of fact. I don't know what was going on with special teams this past weekend. We also saw some big kick returns, and but mostly it's been the issue of blocking the defenders on the field goals. It's happening probably now more than any time I've really can remember watching football. It was the most blocked field goals since 1978, tied for the most, and it's only because they weren't keeping that as a stat before then. But like this is something that's unusual, especially two in a game. I don't think I've ever seen that. I didn't research it to see if it's ever happened before, but the Browns did their thing, specifically defense and special teams. The Browns defense are menaces. In Philly, they were getting dominated the whole game, and they ended up coming back to take a 1 point lead, and then that block field goal, the fact that it was returned for a touchdown, ended up allowing me to win a little bit of cash. And then the Jets blocking that field goal that ended up giving them the lead. Of course, they didn't win the game, but ended up allowing me to cover when it looked like they weren't going to cover the spread at all. So, shout to their defense and special teams plays that they made, winning me some bread. And yeah, it was just an unusual week, and I wonder what that is or what's the explanation for that. It could have just been a fluke, but yeah, the Packers specifically, two block field goals. Y'all got to tighten up on special teams. All right, so some other games to cover uh, that stood out to me was the fact that I was watching the Steelers game and Drake May, he had a solid game, and the numbers looked a lot better than Aaron Rodgers' numbers. And Aaron Rodgers is clearly declining, but he can still make plays. He can still make a play or two to win you a game. Drake May lost that game for them. Now, Patriots fans like, hey, there were other turnovers and they scored points off of those turnovers. And it's like, yeah, but when it came down to it, y'all were able to come back, and then with 4 minutes left in the game, you'd pull a Will Levis. Like you have it wasn't like it was fourth down. You have a play that you kind of essentially it's better to take the sack, and you try to toss it out to somebody. And looking at the replay multiple times, I'm like, I didn't see who he could even have gotten the ball out to. Just take the sack and live another down. And so that turnover ultimately led to the Steelers winning the game overall, which is pissing me off because Aaron Rodgers is looking successful. But that being said, like I remember some of my friends who were Washington fans were like, Drake May, Drake May, Drake May. I'm like, he's not it. He's talented, but he's not a winning quarterback. And he makes plays like this every game to where it's like, should you put your bread down if you're a better on this guy? And, he's proven time and time again that he shouldn't be. So now he's young. He will be able to mature. Hopefully, he matures enough. He gives me a lot of Baker Mayfield vibes. Very talented, but just not disciplined. And Baker Mayfield, I'm not even going to say that he has been disciplined. He leads the league in dropped interceptions. So he's throwing the ball up for grabs. For some reason, nobody's catching him. So he's reverted back to his own ways. Trevor Lawrence, 20 of 40. I've been a Trevor Lawrence guy. I even put him years ago as a potential top 5 quarterback going into that season. And he hasn't even played like a top 15, top 20 quarterback. And my brother, as y'all know, is a Jaguars fan. But, Liam Cohen was able to change Baker Mayfield around in one season, had his best season. And right now, Trevor Lawrence hasn't been able to really deliver the football to his best guys, which is strange because last season he didn't have an issue with getting the ball to Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ. So I don't know what the issue is, and it doesn't seem like him and Liam like each other much. And so Trevor, the unfortunate thing is Liam has to make it work because Trevor's the one with the big contract. Well, actually, I think they can get out of the contract in like a year or two, but that doesn't mean that Liam is going to stick around for that long. So that's Trevor reminds me of, and I didn't like it. I didn't like hearing it. Now Andrew Luck is a far better player, far better. But these guys that come out of the draft and they say things like, "Yo, football isn't everything to me," and it's like you don't want to hear the leader of your team saying that. And Andrew Luck said that. He retired mad young. Trevor Lawrence said that, like, he doesn't need football. And I get what they're trying to say, but you just don't want to hear it from your quarterback who's supposed to be leading this team, because then it's like, how much effort are you really going to give to this when the going gets tough? So I don't know what's going to happen over the next few weeks, but you know, my AFC South predictions right now looking wildly wrong once again. But Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know. He's a guy people have been giving Arch Manning a lot of grief in the college football space. I'm not a college football guy, so I haven't really spoken about it. But I saw specifically live when he dropped a wide open pass because I don't know if he heard footsteps, but there wasn't anybody within 10 yards in either direction of him. And you just like your father taught you everything. At least I assume so. So it's like, how is it possible that you're not able to make the plays that Malik Neighbors has been able to make? And I forget what NFL analysts had said they would take Neighbors over him. And it's proving to be true because Malik Neighbors doesn't have blunders like that. And Marvin Harrison Jr., everybody drops passes. Like it's part of the game, right? It's like everybody airballs in basketball. But when you're that open, you were gotten so much hype, and this wasn't an anomaly. Like he is dropping easy balls, but then people are getting upset at Kyler Murray for not delivering the ball to him enough. And it's like because he's not reliable right now. And he has to get something. And with all the offseason drama that he had, where he didn't work out, he didn't do anything throughout the offseason, there was the jersey thing going on. It's like, bro, like what are we doing, man? And you were so distracted. It seems like it's taken away from the game that we saw in college. And then lastly, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams last week, I was like, maybe he's not that guy. And last weekend didn't change that opinion for me. You played the worst roster, in my opinion, in football, and they just took another loss on the injuries with CeeDee Lamb. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out, but a high ankle sprain for a guy like him, it could be a multiple week thing that lingers throughout the season if he doesn't take any time off. So I don't. The Bears winning and how they won doesn't change anything for me as far as my opinion of them. Just like the Jets being 0-3, like I said, I felt like Aaron Glenn was a better coach. Um, and people were saying, "Oh, because now that Ben Johnson is one, it's looked like he got one up on him." The Jets don't have the roster talent that the Bears do. The Bears actually have a solid roster talent, and they're still they needed the worst team in football or the worst roster in football. Worst team is the Saints, of course, but the worst roster in football to look any type of good. So I'm not really buying Caleb Williams. So we had 4 players that were very hyped coming out of college. 3 of them were in the same draft, and they're not executing at the level that people said that they were going to. And I even said that they weren't, specifically with Drake May. And I felt like Caleb Williams wasn't going to be good due to his coaching. And I felt like Marvin Harrison, the way he was handling his offseason, was probably looking like a bust. And so far, they are. I usually don't try to give people the bust label until after year 3, but I think they're all, or year 3 or year 4, I think they're all trending towards that direction. Why I gotta do this? Why I gotta do this? Baker Mayfield has been balling, man. Like I just said that he has made boneheaded passes as usual, and for some reason nobody wants to pick him off. But the fact that this dude is 3 for 3 in fourth quarter comebacks is really making me upset because y'all know I'm a Baker Mayfield hater. Do not like him, don't like his attitude, but the thing is, he's leading this team. And once again, it looks like, at least so far this season, I'm wrong about the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they're winning these tight games. And generally speaking, when you win games like this throughout the season, you're you're a contender for a Super Bowl. The issue is they're in the weakest division in football, so they're probably not going to get that far. But it's crazy how this team is he's rallying this team every single weekend. Man, it's pissing me off. It really is. But I gotta eat it. I've said a lot of things negatively about Baker Mayfield, called him mediocre Mayfield. And I gotta eat it because he's showing that without Liam Cohen, even though circumstances is keeping him away from turning the ball over, lack of execution on the defensive side, you got to give them props because when they've been losing in every fourth quarter and come back to win. So you got to give them props. Even though I'm a hater, I'm not a. I guess I should say this. Even though I hate certain guys, I'm not a hater. Like I will give them credit when it's due. So shout out to you, Baker, man. Good season so far. So Molly Qerim abruptly leaves ESPN. And I don't know what it is about Stephen A. Like people just instantly jump to Stephen A. Smith as far as like he was to blame for this, and she didn't want to work with him anymore. And now that there's been more news that's leaked out, it seems like it was um, uh, a contract negotiation that went very sour very fast, and so she's like, "To heck with it, I'm out of here," which she has every right to do. I've quit jobs for less of a reason. Matter of fact, I can't think most jobs I've left, it hasn't been because of money. So yeah, it's just like, and that's probably the best reason to leave a job, right? They're not paying you enough. A lot of times I've left a job just because they piss me off, like, as far as like in an interaction or multiple interactions. So it's just like, okay, like this ain't good for my health. This ain't good for your health either. You know what I'm saying? Like if y'all catch what I'm saying. So like I'm just gonna go ahead and get out of here before things go get worse. But that being said, we are quick to blame Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith apparently, or like initially, was blamed for her and Jalen Rose getting a divorce, and now he was being blamed for that Come to find out it was a contract thing. And if she's like going in there, like saying, yo, I'm running the number one show at ESPN, y'all should pay me like somebody who's running the number one show or hosting the number one show that we have here. And they're like, yeah, nah. Now, again, maybe I can see like how ESPN could see it though. Like, okay, we were number one before you. So it's not like you're the reason we're number one. So no, we don't have to pay you. Or like, I don't watch ESPN as much because of my work schedule, but the only thing I see Molly on is ESPN. While Stephen A. Smith, I'm not saying she should get Stephen A. Smith money, but Stephen A. Smith is all over ESPN and all different kinds of walks and things of that nature. Same thing with Greeny. So it's just like, I don't know if they're like, yo, like, you don't do enough outside of this. That was already something that was built in before you, because we were number one when we had Carrie Champion, running this thing. So, and she's gone on to do great things. Now she's not as public as she used to be when she was on ESPN, but that comes with the territory. It's the biggest sports network in the world. So, under the big one, probably the biggest media company in the world, in Disney. So I get it, and I get why she believes that she deserves the money. And so sometimes you got to walk away and bet on yourself. And I love that she did that. I love that she did that. I think she did bring a lot to the team. I didn't necessarily agree with probably 75% of her takes, but I don't think that she always made bad takes. And just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean that it's a bad take. Like somebody on my TikTok page said that um, some of my takes were bad, and that's fine. That's fine. It's a long season. It's a long year. We'll see. This I am somebody who hit over 60% of my predictions last season. So, I'll go with what I think. I don't care what you think. So it's and Molly shouldn't care what I think. So at the end of the day, shout out to Molly, man. Like, I wish her the best. She seemed like she was a cool person. She did, she was entertaining when I would watch ESPN First Take. So yeah, man, I wish her nothing but the best, and I hope she has a great rest of her career. Bruce Pearl, man, like, he's retiring. Eton Thomas pointed out like how he really didn't give a damn about black people, and he just wants to make money off of the bodies of black people. And shout out to Eton Thomas, man. Like, I just started following him on Twitter, and he's a real one. Like, I didn't, of course he was a role player in the NBA, so it's not like he was a superstar NBA player. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like, oh man, and give like revisionist histories. Like, man, I was a fan of his way back when he was in. No, that's not about to happen. But I've become a fan of his lately over the last month or so, 2 or 3 months, seeing some of the things that he's pointed out when it comes to the black community and the black community in sports. And it's just Bruce Pearl. People are like, oh, he can't be racist because he recruits these kids, he gives these kids an opportunity, this and the other. And it's just like, no, you're not gonna win basketball games with an all-white team in college basketball. That's been proven since the 60s. Like, let's not act like. But if you can make money off the backs of black people, i.e., every slave owner in the history of America, then yeah, that's not a new thing. That's not a new concept. So it's just like, this is what this dude does, and then he retires when the heat is starting to come on him, and it could just be, who knows? Maybe he was always planning on retiring. I just know there's been a lot of heat towards him after his Charlie Kirk stuff, and Donald Trump stuff lately, and now all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to retire. To then Auburn saying, okay, let's just get away from this in general. No, let's keep his son in, because apparently head coaching jobs can be passed down from generation to generation. I've never seen that. Maybe that's more of a college thing. I'm not a college guy. I've just never seen anything like that. Now, I've seen coaches hire their kids for jobs. Yes, 100%. But like, it would have been equivalent to like Bill Belichick had like a couple of his kids on his coaching staff. If when he left there, they were like, you know what? Go ahead and give the job to his son. Like that just doesn't make sense. I've never heard of anything like that. So I'm glad knowing like what Bruce Pearl is, that he's gone and he's away from the game. And I hope that more and more coaches get called out for this kind of nonsense. Similar to when, I mean, he's still the coach, but similar to when Dabo Sweeney, like Swinney, I think is how you say his name, Swinney. Yeah, like, and he during the Colin Kaepernick stuff, like I wish there would have been enough pressure on him as well, amongst the players. But you know, these young athletes, they don't have much opportunity, so they kind of eat it, and that's the beauty that Black people's resilience has been. Is look, I'll eat this for now, and we'll move forward, and we'll keep striving, and we'll keep progressing. So, shout to those students, um, and shout to everybody but Auburn as an organization. Y'all can go to hell. I wonder what Cam Newton thinks about that. Hey, Cam, let us know. All right, people, that's it. I think this episode ran a little longer than I wanted to, but we are here. We are at the end of episode Lando Sports Discussions. Y'all let me know what you think. If you liked what you heard or you liked what you saw, please, please, please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll be seeing you next week. Thank you.